Helldivers 2. I knew there was a reason I loved this game. I've recently been poring over the footage of Helldivers 2 next to Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, and there are a lot of similarities. The smooth play, the crouch actions, the crawling, just the general movement around the map, the way the figure moves in the game. It's all very similar, and it really harkens back to Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, which is probably my favourite Metal Gear game and probably one of my favourite games of all time, if not the favourite game of all time. So it gets me, as always, thinking about Metal Gear, thinking about the future of this great franchise. And once again, it left me with a thought experiment, coming up with something that the people at Konami could do to reinvigorate the Metal Gear franchise in what a few people have called the Metal Gear Renaissance. So obviously at the moment we have a remake on the horizon, which is going to be huge for the franchise in Metal Gear Solid Delta. This is the Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater remake, and I have serious high hopes for this game. I want it all. I want this game to be amazing. I want it done right, but I want to see everything surrounding the game come to the fore. I want merch, I want books, comics, action figures, t-shirts, pin badges, lunchboxes. I just want the series to do well. I want the story and the characters to be in people's minds and come back in a similar way to what's happened with the Resident Evil franchise. That's going through something of a renaissance. It's a very strong franchise, and that's in part because in recent years we have gone back and we have done the prequels, the remakes, and we've revisited these key moments in Resident Evil lore, improved upon them in some ways. There were changes made to Resident Evil 2 and 3, even 4, there were certain things that were changed from the original game, which I think is perfectly acceptable, and it helps to modernize and sometimes streamline these stories that can get kind of bogged down with clanky, complex lore. I think that's perfectly fine when you're doing a remake, as long as you stay true to the spirit of the original and really try to honour it rather than outdo it, you know. So when I was watching this footage, it just got me thinking, well, I've been obsessed, by the way, watching Helldivers. I don't have a PS5 or a gaming PC, but I just love putting it on and watching it. It looks like so much fun, and it is fun to watch people play the game. And with that in mind, I got thinking, well, how can I sort of relate this to my favourite franchise, Metal Gear? And that thought came along when I saw this footage side by side. So I think when it comes to the Metal Gear Solid franchise, Konami may feel kind of intimidated, hesitant about doing new things. And if you've watched my previous videos, you'll see that I did a video on a possibility of making a Metal Gear remake, which I desperately want to see. And I will be doing a video, guys, in the future of a Metal Gear 2 possibility remake video. It's like these videos are essentially, it's like my proposals, my ideas, sort of thought experiments, R&D in my own mind of what we could do with the Metal Gear franchise, a franchise that is so close to my heart. I know it's close to a lot of you to a lot of your hearts as well, and we love this thing, and so it's fun to sort of go over and generate ideas and fantasize about what could be with this great franchise. So I think if you have a game that's in the spirit of Helldivers 2, which is, it's basically the rule of thumb with that game is fun. It's not complex, it's not hard to understand, there's no big overarching story. It's got its sort of nods and winks, and there are definitely thematic elements, and there's definitely a small amount of political commentary, but it doesn't hit you in the face, it doesn't bog the story down. The key here is fun. And a saying that I really love, the rule of cool. Make it cool, make it fun, make it visually stunning, nice to play, it flows, and it's satisfying. And if Konami are hesitant or maybe a little intimidated, they're dipping their toes into the pool of Metal Gear without someone like Hideo Kojima. For the first couple of tries, the first few times, they could do something that was centered around fun. I mean, they may have tried this before. We could argue that the first sort of post Kojima Metal Gear was the rather controversial Metal Gear Survive. And I'm not here to bash that game. I'm not going to do it. There are plenty of people that are going to do that. If you hate that game, I see why. If you found things to like within that game, I also see why. I've got that game. I went and bought it out of pure morbid curiosity. I waited for it to go on sale, and I went and bought a copy. And it's nice to be in the Fox engine. It's nice to have that that way of playing. It did some interesting things. I'll be honest, it wasn't my cup of tea. It's fine if it's yours, but that's not how I would do a pick up and play Metal Gear game. So I would look to a game like Helldivers, where there is definitely a plot. You see sort of an opening segment that tells you what the world is, where we are, and what our purpose is. And then you pick up and play. And that could be something that Konami do. I would want them to eventually get around to making a Metal Gear remake, a Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake remake. And then I would, as a self-described superfan, I would expect more story. And I understand that a company like Konami and the people working on these projects do need to build up in confidence to something like that. They need to get staff members, people that understand the franchise and that have a passion and an enthusiasm for these stories and the way that these stories are told. But I understand that they may need to build up to that. So the way I would do it is I would set a Metal Gear game in something called the Mercenary War. So what is the Mercenary War? Well, the Mercenary War is a legitimate part of Metal Gear Solid lore. After Metal Gear 1, a war breaks out in a highly contested area that used to be a part of the Soviet Union, and it separates the Soviet world from the Muslim world, and it's this area of land, former Soviet land, and it gains the name Zanzibar land. Now, there's all kinds of lore-related nuggets of information around this area of land, and if you are lucky enough to own a copy of the Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots novel by a sadly deceased writer called Project Ito, then you will have gotten the little Easter egg that Zanzibar land was actually Selino Yarsk from Metal Gear Solid 3. So Metal Gear Solid 3, alongside the remake that's coming, we can pretty much ascertain at this point, and quite comfortably say without a lot of argument, that for Metal Gear Solid fans, Metal Gear Solid 3 is definitely a high competitor for like the favourite game in this franchise. So it would hook people to have a game set in the Selino Yarsk area. Familiar territory. You could have similar maps, you could have similar locations, but again you get all those familiar sounds, those rich forest sounds, the birds, the trickling water, the wind through the leaves of the forests in that area, the animals, the flora and fauna, just to make it more familiar and comfortable. And it's like kind of a big warm hug when you get something like that. It hits you right in the nostalgia berries, and that would be a very legitimate hook to get you into this thing. And so you've got the setting of the Mercenary War. So the Mercenary War happened. It was basically Zanzibar land's war of independence. It was highly contested, and mercenary units and mercenary companies from all around the world came and fought over the hotly contested Zanzibar land. And as we know, one of the mercenary units were the remainder of Big Boss's Outer Heaven forces and the remainder of the Diamond Dogs that joined forces. You had Grey Fox there who joined him at this point, and he managed to win the mercenary war, and he became the president of Zanzibar land. He took over Zanzibar land, and that's how Big Boss created his second version of Outer Heaven in Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. So that's the setup. You are in a hotly contested area. There are mercenary companies coming at you from left, right, and centre, and you take on the role of one of these mercenaries. And the company that you are obviously fighting for is Big Boss's company. It's known to you as the player from the outset that Big Boss is alive and planning to take this area of land. He obviously has ties to it back from his days in Metal Gear Solid 3. So you go in, you're a mercenary, you are in contact with other mercenaries in the game, and your goal throughout this game is to take areas of the map. It's a huge open world map. Zanzibar land is essentially the entire map, and then some from Metal Gear Solid 3. So you've got mountainous areas, you've got forested areas, you've got rivers, you've got banks and plains and hills and outposts, and obviously Groznygrad will be there. The mountain base will be there. The secret base in the woods before you go and fight Ocelot, that will be there. And there can be all kinds of other things thrown in. Going back to the Resident Evil 2 remake, one thing I did love were all the extra places that they were able to shoehorn in there, because it was obviously on the next-gen console. And so the Raccoon City became a lot bigger, more vibrant and more detailed. And so you can have other places. And as you take your mercenary character, you would have to take outposts, take over them and hold them, and they would essentially become your sort of mini mother base, an FOB, and it would be your job to take and hold these areas with a view to eventually taking over the entire country. And the key here, as I said before, is fun. The way you would do this is by going on sneaking missions, going on missions in a similar format to the way you did in Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, where you would have episodic missions that would accumulate and end with a goal after you've done 3, 4, 5 missions, and then after that you are able to take this area of land, this mini FOB, and as you go and progress through the game, you would be able to take these areas. This would mean you'd be able to fast travel. Even, using the box method, you could either post yourself like you do in Metal Gear Solid 5, or you could put the box with you in it on the back of a truck and get driven to different parts of the map. I'm proposing here a celebration of Metal Gear. So I want to see features in this game that go across the entire franchise. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you look at the loading screen of Metal Gear Solid 5 when you're about to deploy on a mission, you have the option to change Snake's camouflage, change into the sneaking suit, change the weapons. You've got the battle dress, the parasite suit, you've got all the guns, you've got the buddies, you've got D-Dog, D-Walker. So that's the section that I mean. Well, in this game, you turn that up to 11, and you would be able to get, for example, if you wanted your mercenary to wear Colonel Volgin's red Soviet uniform, and that would be an item that you could eventually develop or acquire through the missions that you do, and that would give you the ability to maybe fire electricity or do that awesome bullet firing thing that he does when he charges the bullet in the palm of his hand and then it fires. You would be able to maybe develop like fear camo, so you have the camouflage that fear uses. You would be able to wear like the Ends uniform, that really sort of, he wears that ghillie suit, and the abilities that you could get from that would be like some kind of photosynthesis ability that maybe gives you increased health or allows you to regain your stamina and health a lot faster. Would you have you ever wondered, what it would be like to have that octo camo from Metal Gear Solid 4, where it allowed you to change the face of Old Snake? So you could go into battle as Otacon, you could go into battle as Mei Ling, you could go into battle as Colonel Campbell. Wouldn't it be kind of fun and goofy, and keeping in the sort of more goofy spirit of Metal Gear, if you could go into battle with Volgin's suit and have Colonel Campbell's head? Would it be fun if you could have Otacon's head and go in the Fear or the Ends uniform, or wear a similar attire to what Vamp wears, with the trench coat? And the Foxhound trench coat could be something that you are able to wear in the same way that in part 5, The Phantom Pain, you're able to go in a biker jacket, and all these little Easter eggs and things that you can wear, ways that you can equip your character. You can look certain ways. You can wear the beret. You can look like, similar to how Campbell looks. You can have a guy in glasses, similar to Otacon. You could get different kinds of bandanas. You could bring the wigs back from Metal Gear 2. All of these things, and just make this game, if you're not going to have a Kojima written game, make this game fun, playable, and full of Metal Gear celebratory Easter eggs. And you can have online features as well, similar to what they do with Helldivers, where it's fun to play with friends. You get some friends together and you're all in Big Boss's military company, and it's your job to take and hold this outpost that's within Zanzibar land. And you have to get together and clear out the enemy. And I just think something like that would be a blast. It's not the magnum opus that the Metal Gears are, that the mainline games are, and that would hopefully the Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 remake would become. But it is something that we can get our teeth into, and something that would really fill this void that we're in at the moment. It's also something that would be highly marketable, because you could have merchandise around it, you could have comic books around it, and then you'd have like the downloadable content, and you'd have downloadable outfits, equipment, and I just think it could be something really fun and special. Like I said, the rule of cool. So that was a little thought experiment. It's always fun to do these videos. I like looking through my many Metal Gear books. I've got the art books, the concept art books, and the comic books, the Ashley Wood comics, all in the large compendium. And oftentimes I will thumb through them and just come up with these wacky ideas. What would I like from my favorite franchise? And I am happy that we are in kind of a renaissance period for Metal Gear. I hope it continues. I hope that there are people in Konami that are having these kinds of conversations, even if they get shot down. I know that some of the things I come out with are a bit silly, but at least I'm coming up with things. I'm engaged. I'm excited to think within the realms of the Metal Gear universe. I really hope that conversation's going on wherever those people may be. And I'm enthusiastic and I'm positive about the future of this franchise. And these are things that I would love to see. I think they're possible. I think they'd be awesome. I know I'd love them. I'm sure some of you would too. And let's see what happens. If you enjoy these videos, as I've said, my proposal, my idea, and run through for Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, the remake, that video is in the works and it will be going up soon. And there will be many more videos like this of my brain just spewing out things to do with Metal Gear. So thanks for watching. As always, thanks for your time, and please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. All that stuff really helps me out. I love talking about Metal Gear. I love making Metal Gear figures. I love having Metal Gear conversations and ideas. So thank you. Thanks for listening. I'll see you guys in the next one.